Good afternoon. Welcome to Constitution Day 2015, State Rights, Federalism, Democracy's Redemption. We are in the Gardner Room where the seminar entitled The Left's Assault on American Freedom, Voter Fraud is about to begin. This seminar is aimed at voter fraud in particular to explain the difference between the terms domicile and residence, and how they are used by the left to fraudulently sway New Hampshire elections. For example, should an out-of-state college student be allowed to claim his campus address as his domicile for voting purposes? Can you envision how this practice might impact the culture of state, to change it to a culture that does not reflect the actual citizens of the state? Our speaker for the session is Ed Naile. Ed is a longtime resident of Deering, New Hampshire, and chairman of the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, a nonpartisan, nonprofit taxpayer advocacy group. Known best by his initials, NHCCS was founded nearly 2 decades ago in 2006 and has remained true to its purpose, working effectively to maintain the framers' plan for a limited government, whether monitoring judicial activism, working for school choice, overseeing our unalienable rights, property rights, or maintaining the purity of the vote. Today's focus is on maintaining the purity of the vote, and Mr. Naile has a bevy of information to share with you and several examples to back up his findings. Ed works with other organizations such as the North Carolina-based Voter Integrity Project, and just recently, the once skeptical New Hampshire Secretary of State went public to admit he had witnessed a case of voter fraud occurring in his hometown. Please welcome Ed Naile as he comes to speak to you today regarding the left's assault on American freedom, voter fraud.
Some handouts, and I didn't bring a hassle of stuff with me because this is all on the internet. You can look up CNHC's website, and I also have pens that the hotel has offered us in case you want to jot down some things like court cases or some notes. You can ask me questions later on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to buzz through this because it's complicated and has a lot of different facets. I'm going to talk about the Constitution, our court system, and then we could do some actual cases of voter fraud, how it works, and the different types of voter fraud we have, and election law violations, and the people who are supposed to uphold our rights and the purity of our elections. So I'm going to start off. This is just for a closer that I handed out. What we're going to do is start with the controversial word domicile. Our New Hampshire Constitution, Part 1, Article 11 says the inhabitants, for the purpose of voting, shall be 18 years old, and you vote in the town or ward in which you are domiciled. End of story. Done. Domicile. Doesn't say anything else other than at the end that legal voters have the right to run for office. And interesting that they usually use the word, and even in federal law, qualified voters. That's someone who has a domicile and is 18 years of age and has not been convicted of election violation. Other than that, if you're domiciled here, you're qualified to vote. At the very end of that article, Part 1, Article 11, it says you can run for offices if you're a qualified voter. So we're already having problems with if you're somebody from out of state who votes here but lives in another state, can you run for office here? You get that question right away. So domicile is a word that goes back to the 1500s. It's not very difficult to understand. If you look at something most courts use called Black's Law Dictionary, it is your legal residence. It is a fixed, defined legal residence of which every person has one. Even if you're under a bridge, you have a domicile under that bridge, or you pick a spot. Everybody has one domicile. You get many residences. Oprah Winfrey has many residences, but she has one domicile. That's where you would serve on a jury, be arrested from, you file your income taxes from your domicile, not from your summer cottage or from your dorm, unless that is your domicile. So we have domicile is the word the founding fathers picked, the single word, put it in the Constitution, there it is. It is an accepted word by the other 49 states and international law. Okay, so if you're going to have problems overseas with a court case, domicile comes to bear, and they'll use the legitimate definition of domicile. It's your fixed legal address. Then we have an interesting case from 1972 where a law student at Dartmouth decides to challenge the way voters were allowed to vote in Hanover, New Hampshire. And he declared that his dorm was his domicile. He went to federal court, and federal court said, well, the clerks in Hanover were asking the student if he intended to stay there forever, if he was going to live after he graduated. Are you going to stay here in Hanover? Because if you're not, you can't vote. That case was already heard by the federal government in the case in Tennessee. So naturally, Hanover lost. And the end, that last paragraph in that court case, it's called Neuberger versus Peterson. Peterson was the governor in 1972. It says, we understand that a town wants to, any municipality wants to have a sense of community. And to prevent otherwise qualified individuals or inhabitants of New Hampshire from voting by promising they were going to stay there for a certain amount of time is a violation of the 14th Amendment. So, in the state of New Hampshire from 1972, and in America from 1972 on, if a student says, I declare my dorm my domicile, he can vote here. Well, our courts and our Secretary of State and our Attorney General's office took that to be, and the ACLU and the League of Women Voters took that to be, any college student can vote here. I don't care if college students vote here or not, as long as they declare that dorm their domicile. That's all I ask. Okay? Well, a quick one.
It is quick. Why in the blazes don't they look and see if the person pays residential fees for college or out of state?
That would be a separate issue, because that's the ruling of the college. So it's also a piece of evidence. Right. So domicile can also be determined. There's 49 other states in this country that elect the same president we do. And their domicile rules sometimes, often case, say your domicile is, and they'll list 16 or 17 different things, like do you pay out-of-state tuition? Do you have a driver's license in that state? Where are your bank accounts? Where do you go to church? Where do you work? Where do your kids go to school? And that's the qualifiers. Vermont has that. A lot of states. California has it endlessly. So you can look it up. Any state you want, qualifications for voting, and pick another state. It'll say it must be your domicile or your legal residence or your residence. And then it'll say, here's your qualifications, driver's license. Because on your driver's license, it says, like on my fishing license, which I have here, it says, is this your legal residence? My driver's license here, this is amazing, but my driver's license actually has my picture on it. And this little address right here, 61 Tubbs Hill Road, that's my domicile. I've sworn to get the driver's license, that's my legal address. And on my fishing license, I've done the same thing. I hereby declare that I'm a resident. I like this one. We can't do this with elections. Resident affidavit. I hereby certify I'm a resident of New Hampshire and I do not claim residence in any other state. Remember that, because we're going to come back to claiming residence in any other state. And let's say venue shopping. So we have a case. The federal government ruled you cannot restrict a student who wants to declare their dorm a domicile. You can't restrict them, okay. So we take that one step further and say, as long as you're here and you lay your head on a pillow at a dorm, you can vote from that dorm. The next case to come up was in 2012, and that was called Hannah Rivers versus Gardner. Hannah Rivers and a bunch of other students were talked into becoming litigants to sue the state of New Hampshire regarding a law. The legislature passed a law trying to clarify domicile. And they said, if you, in declaring New Hampshire my domicile to vote here, I also will follow all the other rules. I'll get driver's license, every other rule and law that a New Hampshire citizen would have to obey, like jury duty, right? So instantly the League of Women Voters and the ACLU took that to court, and they got an interesting judge named John Lewis, who's no longer a judge. That's good for everybody, in Stratford County. Now normally you sue the state of New Hampshire, you would sue it in Merrimack County where the legislature is. They passed the law. Why did they pick Stratford County? That's called forum shopping or venue shopping. When you want to steer the outcome of your election, of your case, you go to a friendly judge. That's appalling. That's also bad news for any other cases. If a judge figures you're shopping, they can throw your case out for that. In New Hampshire, that's perfectly legitimate. So we had the Hannah Rivers case, which was filed in enough time for the New Hampshire Supreme Court to rule on it. It was filed in September. They could have easily addressed that before the November elections, and they let it go. And I was telling people, you're never going to hear the end of this case. It's going to rattle on and on and on and on, because it allows, it is an excuse for the colleges talking students into voting in their towns, and still staying. residents of other states. The Hannah Rivers case, which morphed into it's Anna Marie Guerre, was the final ruling of the Supreme Court. They got a new set of litigants as they graduated. The interesting thing is we cannot show that Hannah Rivers ever voted in New Hampshire. She sued the state of New Hampshire as an Oklahoma resident going to school in UNH for the right to vote in New Hampshire. So she kept her driver's license in the other state, as all the new litigants are. Keep their driver's license in the other state, which has the same law as ours does. You know, when you get a driver's license in Kentucky or anywhere else, it says, this is my legal residence, that's what's on your driver's license. If you don't think that works, try telling the state trooper when you hand him your driver's license, oh, by the way, that's not my real address, and see what happens to you. Okay, because you've sworn under penalty of perjury. I'm a truck driver. You know, mine, I go through all other states with a truck and my license. If I get pulled over and they think I have 2 or 3 licenses, click, I'm gone. So, I turned into Anna Marie Guerre. Anna Marie Guerre has now taken over for Hannah Rivers. And the Hannah Rivers case is the one where Judge Lewis decided there was such a thing as mobile domiciles. Mobile domicile, I've looked all over the internet for the definitions of mobile domicile. It's a portable French sawmill, is as close as I can get. There is no legal term for mobile domicile. It was clearly invented by Judge Lewis, who has left the bench for making disparaging remarks about female attorneys. That's a whole other case. God bless him wherever he is. That case went to a new judge, Superior Court judge, in the same county, who was appointed to that seat from the Attorney General's office. That's like the worst place in New Hampshire to protect your vote is the Attorney General's office. We'll get some other words that are in Black's Law Dictionary directed at them when I'm finishing up. So Anna Marie Guerre and 3 other people, students, Massachusetts and Maine, maybe 2 from Massachusetts, had taken up the cause of the ACLU and illegal women voters to a friendly judge in a county which never should have heard the case, that they, even though they're going to remain drivers in Maine, Anna Marie Guerre, I think it's 39 James Street is where Anna Marie Guerre lives. She's going to school at UNH and says she's going to graduate, and when she says, in the court case, they say, oh, and we're not promising to stay, to drag in the Neuberger case, which is irrelevant. Dragging that Neuberger case in like that's a shining beacon of light for out-of-state voters. So Anna Marie Guerre is living at 39 James Street in Bangor, Maine. So she's going to stay there, vote here. She has not registered yet, from what I can tell, from my access to the voter list. She hasn't registered yet. Hannah Rivers sued us. Oh, she intends to vote on the 2012 election and then leave as a college student. She never voted. She lied to the court. That case shouldn't even be there anymore. They should have tossed that for lying to the court, saying, I'm suing the state for the right to vote here. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to vote. How does that pass muster? It does here in New Hampshire now. So Anna Marie is the new litigant. It's 3936 James Street in Bangor, Maine. Unfortunately for her, the former mayor of Bangor, Maine is on their election law committee. Lawrence Willie, his name is, and I've contacted him, and he goes right away, he's a lawyer. He says, what the heck is going on in New Hampshire? I said, well, then you've read the press releases. So that's what's up. He says, she can't stay a resident here and vote there. I said, well, that's what she says her intention is, and she must be interested in registering same day and then unregistering or just disappearing after she gets her vote. Steals her vote from us. She's a low-life, dirtball vote thief is what she is. Anna Marie Guerre, in case anybody sees this, or attorney, Anna Marie Guerre is a low-life when she votes in New Hampshire. Keeping her residence in Bangor, Maine is a low-life, dirtball vote thief. I hope potential employers hear that. And I'm at 61 Tubbs Hill Road. If any of her attorneys would like to contact me, let's do that dance. So that's her game right now. So I called the Bangor city clerk, and I forget her name now, but I said I would like to get a copy of a voter registration for Bangor, Maine, because I'm going to send it to her parents and say, maybe you should talk your daughter into not doing something stupid like being listed as a low-life vote thief for the rest of her life on the internet. Anytime a potential employer looks that up, that's what they see.
Croc TV.